What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with another episode of Dynasty Decisions. If you guys are new to the channel, this is where we take your Dynasty questions, your Dynasty trades, your Dynasty teams. Should I rebuild? Should I go for the championship? Et cetera, et cetera. If you want to be a part of this series, we love making it. You guys love watching it, of course. So if you want to be a part of it, you can hit us up on Twitter, on the screen right now, Discord, free to join in the description right now, and get your questions answered. If you guys want first dibs on being on the Dynasty Decision series, you can become a Patreon, which will be officially launching on Monday with our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto. One of the benefits, of course, being a Patreon of ours will that you will be the first to get your questions answered on Dynasty Decisions episodes. So, Danny, how you doing today?
Doing well. Ready to get through some of these Dynasty Decisions questions, these Dynasty Decisions teams that you guys have sent forth to us on Discord and Twitter. But yeah, again, this is one of my favorite series to record, as I basically say in every single episode. It's just fun kind of putting us into your mind as to what exactly we'd be able to do. So I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. And yeah, I'm ready to hit that intro and get on to this first team. All right, so the first team, Tride's team. Take it away, Corey.
Yep. So we got a one quarterback league here, standard league, non-PPR, not a format that we're used to talking about. We're usually talking about the opposite format for both things, but you guys can see his team on the screen. I'm not going to read it off, but he's basically just asking, are you looking to make any moves or just ride the rebuild with this pick? So as we can see on his team, he clearly has some rebuilding type of assets: Trey Lance, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Zach Wilson, T. Higgins, Rashad Bateman, Pat Freiermuth. So a team that is well set up for a rebuilding 2023 type of window.
Yep.
And you guys can see his picks there as well. He has two first-round picks this year, the 102 and the 109, the 203 and the 207. And then he also has 2 firsts and 2 seconds in 2023, 2 seconds in 2024 as well. So he's set up in a good position basically to rebuild this thing from the ground up. You just kind of need to acquire as much talent as possible. With that 102 pick, you should be able to get a stud receiver most likely with that, or a stud running back, whatever the case is. So are you looking to make any moves? Or are you looking to just ride the rebuild? Do you have any first takeaways with this team?
I mean, this is clearly built as a 2023 contender, in my opinion, because you have your nucleus, you have your Higgins, Dobbins, Gibson, Lance, Bateman, etc., Freiermuth. You just kind of need more depth at this point. Now, obviously, the 102 and the 109 with those second-round picks can help a lot. The main positions in this particular draft that I would look for would be those wide receivers, because I don't think personally, off of first glance at the running backs, that I would personally rather a Spiller, a Hall, a Walker over who you can get like a Garrett Wilson as the 102. So for me personally, if I'm projecting forward into the rookie draft right now, Garrett Wilson would definitely be the 102. And in terms of the 109, I mean, realistically, outside of those top 3 backs who should be all gone, you're going to be talking wide receivers. You're going to be talking your David Bells. You're going to be talking about your Jameson Williams. You're going to be talking about guys more so in that area. So if I'm comparing that or any other running backs, it's probably going to be 2 receivers at those 2 picks. In terms of actual team and exact moves based off the roster, what I'd want to do, I'd be interested to gauge DJ Chark's market if you were to sign with a team like, say, the Eagles, or he signs like, a decent wide receiver 2 type of deal in free agency, being able to sell high off the hype, because we notice every single year there are big free agent signings that happen of, lower tier wide receiver 3 type of assets that people really want to propel up in value once they land in new situations. Because at the end of the day here, you need that elite talent to be able to produce despite the situation. But a lot of people will see the situation and want to buy DJ Chark for maybe more than he's actually worth. So again, if DJ Chark signs with a team like the Eagles and you can net, a 2023 second for him, like that's the type of deal I'd be looking for.
Yeah, I think the same goes for Josh Palmer. If Mike Williams signs elsewhere too, you could probably sell him for a second-round pick. Anybody that you can, sell that's in your depth pool, but it's not exactly good depth for your team, I think is also worthy of shopping. Anybody like that. And in a 1 quarterback league, you're pretty set at the QB position. Yep. I don't think you really need to address Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold. Like, that's a fine quarterback core in a 1 quarterback league. So overall, yeah, I think riding out the rebuild is the play here. I'm not necessarily looking to shop the 102 unless I can get 2023 first for him. Like if you have the 102 on the board, let's say somebody's really high on Breece Hall, Isaiah Spiller, Garrett Wilson, whoever it is, and they're willing to give you a 2023 first and maybe another young piece on top of that, I'm okay, moving off of that pick. Or maybe they're going to give you the 111 in a 2023 first or something like that. Definitely be looking to make some moves like that. But aside from that, I'm okay moving off this team. I think you just riding out the rebuild here, tried. So Wolverine's team, or Kilgi as he's known in the YouTube comments, Superflex Dynasty League. You guys can see the team on the screen as well. Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Jalen Hurts. This is a super flex league. So he has those three quarterbacks, all three of which are in my top 12 quarterback rankings in Dynasty. At running back, Cam Akers, Josh Jacobs, most notably, T. Higgins, Devontae Smith at wide receiver, and then Noah Fant, Gronkowski. Look at the draft capital, though. This is really where his team is set up in a great position. This is the classic example of why we talk about flexibility, being able to, make moves and maneuver your way to being a contender and knowing when to push your chips into the middle. I think you could go a number of different ways with this. You could go the way of let's ride out the picks, make most of those draft selections, and build my team that way. Because I think at wide receiver, you could definitely use some pieces. Those first 5 draft picks that you have there are definitely going to help you out, the 102, 103, and 104. And then also just replenishing my team using trading pieces. So let's say you take, Garrett Wilson, one of the running backs and another wide receiver with those first 3 picks.
Jake
and
London.
106, you're not really liking the board as much. Maybe there's a quarterback available, like a Matt Corral or something, which you obviously do not need in your situation. You could always shop that pick and try and get a 2023 first. You could try and get, a wide receiver, a tight end, or a running back to help you compete right away. There's a lot of directions you could go with this team.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. This is a perfect setup that you have situated here. And there are no real pressing needs in terms of your starters now. Would I like to see a little more depth at the wide receiver position? Absolutely. But that's why you have so much draft capital in this draft. Overall, again, the only real position I'm looking to attack is to build up that wide receiver depth. Obviously, if one of the top running backs falls and you're not confident of having Melvin Gordon as your 3 going forward, you can allocate a resource there. But this is a type of team where if I'm on the clock in my rookie draft, I am open to every single offer that comes my way. Like if somebody sees that 106 and really needs a quarterback and they're willing to offer, their 2023 first, and they're a middling type of team, which you can basically project similar to that pick next year, go for it. This is the perfect situation, in my opinion, to be in Dynasty Fantasy Football, because again, you're not stuck to having to fill one position out, having to go and contend right away. You're open to any single valuable resource, any single valuable offer that comes your way. So overall, just scan the board, see what type of offers you're getting when you're on the clock, and don't be dead set on having to take a player. More so scan the assets that are coming your way if somebody's able to make a deal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a guy like J.K. Dobbins, for example, would make a good trade target for you if you wanted to move, let's say, the 106 for J.K. Dobbins, maybe on the clock or closer to the draft. They realize
even the 104,
yeah, they're able to get a quarterback or something with that pick. You might be able to move the 106. Maybe you have to throw in Melvin Gordon just to get the deal done or something like that. I'm okay making some moves in that regard as well, because I do think if you wanted to, you could push your chips to the middle, spend 2 of those draft picks, trade the other 2 for veterans, and try and compete this year. You definitely could do that. But I think the best case scenario is just to be patient and take advantage of the rookie, buying window that everybody's going to be in come March and April.
Yep. No, for sure. So overall, any other underlying thoughts on his team, or should we move on to Wyatt?
No, we can move on to Wyatt. I think Kilgi and / Wolverine has got a good head on his shoulders. He sends me a lot of deals often, and I see the work that he's doing. So he doesn't need a whole lot of help, I would say. So Wyatt's team, 10-team, PPR, Superflex, tight end premium as well. You guys can see the team on the screen. He is very, very well set up. And even in a 10-team league, this is just an absolutely ludicrous team to have, especially those top 2 quarterbacks, obviously stud. Zach Wilson, a great QB3 to have in Dynasty. Great top 2 running backs with A.J. Dillon, obviously another good Dynasty asset. That wide receiver core is just absolutely absurd with Chase, A.J. Brown, Kupp, Elijah Moore, Keenan Allen, Rashad Bateman. Good solid tight end 1 and Dallas Goedert as well. Obviously doesn't have any first or second round draft capital in this draft, but he does have most of his draft capital plus an additional second in 2023. So overall, looking at this team, I don't think there's really any weaknesses to it. I think the only thing you can maybe argue as a weakness is you maybe want a better tight end 1, but I still think Dallas Goedert is a fine option given the rest of your team. If you look at who's going to carry your team, it's going to be probably Lamar Jackson and your top 2 running backs and those wide receivers. So you really don't need an elite tight end like Kyle Pitts or Darren Waller or George Kittle or anything like that.
The one thing I have to bring to you, and I want to know your thoughts on, is if hypothetically the CeeDee Lamb owner wanted to move off him and go for Cup in his situation, like what else would you add to Cup to get Lamb?
I mean, you're in a competing window. I'm probably okay just holding on to Cup. And
Fair.
obviously, we're going to talk about it. I can just transition this into right now because he did make a trade that is like a contending
Oh,
type of trade that he made. So he traded away the 102. I guess that was the first round pick that he had. Obviously, it probably was not his own first round pick given
yeah,
the state of his team. He also traded away the 206, Darnell Mooney, and Josh Palmer. So a good young package for a team that is probably going to be
definitely fair.
rebuilding. For Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, two great receivers that are going to help you in the near future for sure. 302 and 2023 fourth. So given the state of your team, I am absolutely on board with making this deal. When you
Yep.
look at the package, it looks good. If I was rebuilding and I saw this package for the deal that you're going to get, I'd say it's probably an adequate win-win type of move. You're getting a nice, solid young receiver in Darnell Mooney, an upside swing in Josh Palmer, a very high draft capital pick like the 102, and then a mid-second rounder. I think this is probably a good deal for everybody involved.
Yeah, no, I fully like this deal on both sides. Obviously, again, this is kind of echoing what we said in our biggest tips for Dynasty video, that trades don't have to be one-sided. You don't have to just go out and win your deal. You can make deals like this where you're getting your win now assets to try to put your chips in the middle and win the chip. On the flip side, obviously, the guy who's rebuilding has no real need to hold on to the aging assets that Kupp and Allen are. So getting a nice young package, a decent young receiver, maybe one with upside if Mike Williams leaves as well with Josh Palmer. Like, this is a mutually beneficial deal that I really like seeing the community make. So overall, good job. Another thing that we kind of have listed here in terms of moves that you wrote down is maybe trying to upgrade from Goddard into one of the top five. So if you can even put,
Kittle makes the most sense, I think, given his team, because he's still young enough that he's not going to be completely aging, but he's also in his prime. I think if you were to take Dallas Goedert, Rashad Bateman, or something like that, like some combination of those kind of players, and go after George Kittle, I think that's a move that I'd be looking to try and make. Maybe Darren Waller,
Yep.
if the George Kittle owner isn't budging. I think you could probably get a sizable upgrade at tight end if you made a move like that. But again, I'm kind of nitpicking here. I think Dallas Goedert's going to be good enough next year to the point that you don't need to make that kind of move because of how your team is going to be carried by your quarterback, your top quarterback, and your wide receivers and some of your best running backs. So just a nitpicky kind of move if you wanted to make a move like that.
Yep, no, for sure. So we actually got Christian next, and here's a couple trades here you can get through.
Yep. So Christian just sent me a bunch of trades, didn't actually send me a team. If you guys want to just, trade advice, we also accept that. It doesn't have to be your entire team that we talk about. But Christian talked about all these trades he's made so far this offseason. So these have come at varying points in the month of January, basically. But
Second deal.
And I don't really need to give too much analysis on this first trade because when you look at that first trade, Kyle Pitts and the 102, to me, are clearly the best assets in that deal.
Easily.
So Kyle Pitts, if you offered me Kyle Pitts, or if you offered me Dawson Knox, Josh Jacobs, Darnell Mooney in a second round pick, I don't know if I would trade that for Kyle Pitts. Like if I had Kyle Pitts, I don't know if I would give that up in exchange for him because he's just that much of a difference maker at the tight end position. We got a 21-year-old tight end that just recorded an 1,000-yard season. He is the best tight end in Dynasty. I don't even think it's particularly close. So
it isn't.
Kyle Pitts to me is clearly the best asset in this deal. And then the 102 is clearly the second best asset in this deal. So I think you absolutely took him to the woodshed in this one.
Yeah. And again, there's not much else in terms of rationale here. If you really want to broke it down, maybe Ronald Jones equals the second, Kyle Pitts in the 102 for the rest of the package. Like, yeah, you won that deal. I don't really think we can argue otherwise. This second deal is perfect. This second deal screams to me that the other owner is desperate, that the other owner either has one quarterback option, maybe one and a decent quarterback, 3 quarterback 2 type, and really wants to get a quarterback, because to pay that type of price for any other position other than quarterback would be ludicrous. But the fact that you move down 5 picks in a draft that, quite frankly, there isn't no clear-cut number one player. There isn't a Jamar Chase level player. There isn't a DeAndre Swift, a Jonathan Taylor. No, there's no type of player like that this year. The fact that you're able to move down only 5 picks and also net a 2023 first-round pick, if we're just comparing assets, let's say that 106 is Drake London and that 101, say he picks Matt Corral. Drake London and a first for Matt Corral is basically what this deal would end up being.
Right. And that first could end up turning into a better receiver prospect than Drake London, like next year. Like it could end up being,
and I love it. I love
London next year, the 105 next year. And then at that point, you're staring maybe
Jackson
Jahmyr
Smith,
Gibbs falls to
Jigba.
that point, or you're getting a better running back prospect than you'd get in this draft class. Because I don't think it's
Yep.
it's probably not arguable that there's going to be 3 or 4 running backs that would have been the
Oh,
RB1
easily.
in this class next year. So
I'm not convinced
yeah, I
that.
love that move. That is something we don't talk about enough, I think, is trading down in your rookie drafts, because it is very, very likely that there's going to be a couple players in your league that fall in love with Treylon Burks. They fall in love with whoever prospect that they really like, and they're going to be willing to overpay for them. I did it last year. I traded away my first rounder in this year's draft class for Elijah Moore. It ended up being the 111, so it didn't end up mattering as much, but that people are going to have their favorite prospects in each draft class. And if you can take advantage of that by collecting draft capital for next year, it's always going to work out in the long run.
Well, actually, that would have been in thoughts, so it would have been more of a mid first. But either way, like you're thinking about it at the time, like
No,
everybody's like, "Oh my
sorry,
god!"
it wasn't my first rounder that I traded away. It was the
Oh, okay,
111. It wasn't my first rounder.
okay. So either way, like you got Elijah Moore, who's worth more than that pick now. But at the time, I remember you're on the clock at 207. Everybody's like, "Oh my god!" Like I can't believe you just traded a first round pick for what ended up being the 207, and now Elijah Moore is
Elijah
worth
Moore
more
was
than
my
that pick.
111 or 110
Yeah,
coming into the draft, so I was like, he should not be on the board at
yeah,
207. I don't care. I'll trade my
yeah.
first rounder. That's not actually mine, because I had 2 ones
Yeah, and now
in
we
the bank for 2022.
and now we both have him as a top 15 wide receiver. So safe to say, don't judge a book by its cover when a deal's initially made, because there's so many instances where everything gets turned on the head. But either way, I don't think this trade's going to backfire on you whatsoever, either or. So
Yep. So the final trade that Christian sent us here, this one is definitely a little bit more, even, I would say, than the first two. The first two seemed very one-sided in Christian's favor. This is a package I find a hard time giving up for any player, really, but especially, a running
yeah,
back. He gave up, the 102, the 106, and the 105. So 3 top 6 overall picks. And I believe it is a super flex league. So those are going to be high draft capital type of, picks, high draft capital assets. They're going to have a lot of value. You give that up for, 1 player and 2 second round picks. It's a lot to stomach. What are your thoughts on this deal? I think, again, if this was just DeAndre Swift for the 102 and the 106, no second rounders, no 105 involved, I think I have a little bit more of an easier time stomaching this. Given that this draft class isn't, 2020's draft class or 2023's draft class, it's not going to be super, super top heavy with elite assets. I'm okay doing this package, but I do think, given what, the circumstance of the other team, maybe they may have won this trade if they're looking for a full-fledged rebuild.
too much for me personally. Like for really any asset that I would throw into here, apart from maybe the top 3 quarterbacks I have, I wouldn't be able to stomach making, especially for a running back. I love DeAndre Swift. He's a top 3 running back for me. This is just a little too much. Now, if you were to say that those 2 seconds were instead of 2023 first, I'd do that deal. Like I think that is fair valuation, because realistically here, you could probably net DeAndre Swift for 2 of those picks, whether you want the 102 and the 106, 106 and 105, whatever. Let's just say DeAndre Swift equals 2 of those first round picks. I would have needed at least a 2023 first to be able to equate to one of the other picks. I don't think the 2 seconds does the deal for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to give that up. Just, I would say, for a non-quarterback asset in general, whether it's Jamar Chase, Justin
100%.
Jefferson, whatever. If this is Josh Allen, I'm okay making this deal. If this is Justin Herbert, I'm okay making this deal, or Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, non-quarterback assets with the longevity factor of the running back position, it is definitely hard to stomach giving up 3 first rounders. So overall, your first 2 trades, you absolutely destroyed them. So it definitely makes up for that trade being a little bit more even, or maybe even in favor of the guy that you traded away for. But if you're looking to push your chips to the middle, and I believe Christian has been on Dynasty Decisions before and just had so many good players and also so much draft capital. So if you're just swimming in it, I guess it's a little easier to stomach at that point. But I personally would take the right side of that trade.
Like I will say the underlying like gold of this too is that the 106 and the 102 were both picks he got in the previous deals as well. So,
Right.
I mean, it's easier to stomach then. But yeah, I personally would have wanted at least a 2023 first attached to it apart, as opposed to the 2 seconds. But either way, yeah, overall net positive from these 3 deals. You did a good job regardless. We can move on to Brycen's team, a 12-team Superflex tiered PPR league. I'll let you take it away with the roster and what types of moves he's either done or is considering doing.
Right. So tiered PPR, unless it's specified, I'm just assuming it's half for running backs, full for wide receivers, and 1.5 for tight ends, because that's just, how I usually think of tiered PPR. As you guys can see, Brycen's team on the screen right now, it's very much one of those rebuilding teams. You got Deshaun Watson, Zach Wilson as your quarterbacks, Javonte Williams as your best running back, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, Elijah Moore, Michael Thomas, Rashad Bateman at wide receiver, and then Pat Freiermuth in a tight end premium. Always good to have there. And then you guys can see the draft capital. He has 2 of the top 3 picks this year, high second, third, fourth, and fifth round picks. And then he also has 2 ones in 2023 as well. He sent a trade that he did recently where he's curious what our thoughts are. This to me is just highway robbery. As much as I love Najee Harris, I think Najee Harris is a great running back asset to have. He's a top 6 or 7 running back for me in Dynasty right now. There's no chance I would give up this package in order to acquire Najee Harris. I think this deal would be fair if you gave up the 103 and Deontay Johnson. Even then, I would still take the 103 and Deontay.
I would take Deontay
Harris, but you got a 2023 first on top of this deal somehow.
Dude, the only assets that I would realistically pay that type of price for would be my top 4 quarterback or my top 3 quarterbacks and Jonathan Taylor. Genuinely. Like, would you pay this for Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson? Maybe.
Probably not. No.
Like that's probably like the cutoff where it's like a maybe. But the only ones that I can concretely say that I would be willing to give up that type of package for would be Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Taylor. So the fact that you got that package for Najee Harris, well, again, I'm not going to shit on Najee. He had a really good rookie season, but keep in mind he's going to be 24 years old when the season starts. Like, he's basically the age of a lot of these second contract running backs, which people don't really clue in because he's going into his second year. The fact that you got that type of package for Najee Harris, like, it's unbelievable. Like, I genuinely think Deontay Johnson, he's far off from Najee, but are we talking a 2023 first, a 103 type of far off? No. So
yeah,
overall,
I think if you take 2 of those pieces together and any 2 of those pieces in this deal, I think it's a like better value than what Najee Harris presents. So the fact that you got all 3 of those things, great move there. I think, as far as next moves, where you can go, he also said this is a fresh startup too. Like, he just drafted this team on January 23rd. So like 6 days ago. So he basically went into his draft. I guess the way the board fell, he was able to draft a lot of these accruing value assets. And this is the best thing to do in your rookie drafts, right? These 2023 firsts are not going to be worth a whole lot in your rookie draft.
Startup.
Same goes for a guy like Deshaun Watson, who's not going to be worth a whole lot right now, just because of the unknown factor of his legal situation. So I think you did a great job. I think come August, middle of the season next year, you're going to look like one of the better teams and one of the most dangerous teams for sure going into the future. So I think you have a great framework foundation for a 2023 contender.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. That was a phenomenal move. Overall, what type of moves do you think he should do with these 2022 picks, and should he trade back into 2023? So he has the 101 and the 103 this year. Honestly, like, unless somebody's willing to pay that type of offer, like, again, if somebody's willing to give you a boatload for the 101 or give you a boatload for the 103 and you can project that pick back into 2023, I'd consider it. But I don't mind just keeping and accumulating talent with those picks. So the 101 and the 103, like, if you add 2 elite wide receivers, I wouldn't mind that type of move. If you add, the 201 and you see David Bell falls to you, just keep accumulating value. I know anytime I say accumulating value, I end up mentioning wide receivers because let's be honest here. The best value accumulator, apart from the quarterback position, as I mentioned with the Dynasty Tips video, is the wide receiver position, because I fully believe that you don't have to build up your running back core until you're ready to compete. And for me, this is a team that you figure it out come 2023 with those 2 firsts. If one ends up high and you can get like a Bijan maybe, like, this is a team that's fully fledged and ready to compete in 2023.
Right, especially with those 2 high picks that you have this year. If you can collect 3 or 4 first-round picks in 2023, and you can add a Bryce Young to your quarterback core, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs to your running back core, suddenly you're cooking with gas, obviously. So, great job. I think you're set up well for the future. Again, just take the value as it's presented. If nobody wants to sell high or buy high on those draft picks when you're on the clock, just spend them on elite receiver talent. Maybe you're able to sell Michael Thomas midseason for a 2023 first after people realize he is Michael Thomas still. I know Brycen's a Saints fan, so I'm assuming that's why he made that pick. We'll move on to the next team. We got Mike's team here. Superflex Dynasty League. He did give me some insight on the market, which is always helpful. If you guys do know how your league behaves, that's definitely helpful for us to give you the best advice possible. He says that people value players more than picks. And again, what this kind of screams to me is that it's redraft players that are playing in Dynasty. They're probably new to Dynasty. I think he did say it was a first-year league as well. So most of the people don't understand the value of draft capital, don't understand the liquidity that draft capital gives you. And you can pretty much see that by looking at Mike's team. And unfortunately for you, Mike, I don't think we're going to spend very much time on your team because quite frankly, you don't need our help. He said he rebuilt this team this year using a lot of the draft capital that he collected. How can he make this a contender? Now, I would argue this is already a contender because your running back core, I don't know how many flexes you have and how many players you can start, but your running back core is one of the most absurd things I've seen.
Dude, you literally have top 12 dynasty running backs? Like,
you have like 4 top 7 dynasty running backs
like
too.
This is ridiculous. On top of that, okay, you got T. Higgins, Godwin, Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy. Maybe you want to add one elite wide receiver, but you have picks this year.
You got 1 and 2 overall this year.
Like you're like this after this draft this year alone. You keep pounding wide receivers because that's probably going to be the falling value. Say you add Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, David Bell, and maybe Drake London falls. You're winning the championship in 2022 and then have 4 first-round picks in 2023.
Yeah, this is the type absurd of league that your league mates are going to leave in 2023 because they're going to look at your team and be like, we're literally never coming back from this. Like, how did we let this happen? That is like the type of the one thing that makes me nervous about this team is the fact that people might leave this league. Like, legitimately, they might look at your team and be like, I don't want to be in this league with this team anymore. So I would be a little bit more likely to try and push my chips to the middle this year just for that reason. And that sounds crazy to a lot of people listening to this, but like, you can't assume that people are going to want to stay in this league.
Well, I mean, look at the assets he has on his roster. Look at the picks he has. And then you would be like, okay, maybe he sucks at quarterback. Maybe that's why he's got so many good running backs, so many good receivers. Maybe he doesn't have a good quarterback core. Oh no, he has Justin Fields, Deshaun Watson, Trey Lance, and Trevor Lawrence. All right. Like, this is absurd. Yeah. You clearly don't really need our help because, quite frankly, I don't think either of us have built a team like this.
No, I never have built a team like this. And one thing I would be likely to do with this team is try and go get an elite quarterback. I might take Trevor Lawrence and the 101 and see if I can go get Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, somebody like that. Because I think if you add that to this team, then you're not going to lose the championship unless you just have the most unfortunate injury luck I've ever seen. That it'd be very hard to lose a championship with this team.
And genuinely speaking, with a team like this, even if you have to overpay a little bit from a contextual value standpoint in some of these deals, you already built up so much value to the point that it doesn't matter if you take, an 80% return on a deal, because if you can get that upgrade at a player, like, again, this team's winning the championship, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, make sure you can win a championship with this team before people leave your league. Yeah. Because I do think it is a serious risk of happening just based on, if I was in a league like this and I looked at your team, I'd be like, I don't want to be in this league anymore. Like, how did we let this happen? Anyway.
And again, like, we're advocates of, staying and grinding and everything. But when it gets to this point, like, genuinely speaking, I don't think anybody else in the league is going to be able to compete at least for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, which is wild. It's not like you just have all these players in their prime too. Like, all the players you have are young, and you have like you probably have like half of the first 3 rounds of your startup on your team, pretty much. So
it's absurd.
All right, now let's move on to Brian Harris's team. A little bit of a worse situation, obviously, than Mike's team was in, but nobody's going to be in that good of a situation. Brian's in a 10-team PPR Superflex league. You guys can see what his team looks like now. He did actually have a number of older assets that he moved on from, and was able to provide himself a little bit more flexibility. And I think he did a great job of moving off and selling high on some of these guys, because guys like Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Dalvin Cook to some degree, these guys are all at very, very high value relative to what we think they can be going forward. Because as good as Cooper Kupp was this year, it's going to be hard for any receiver, let alone a guy that is almost 29 years old, to repeat what he did this year. So being able to capitalize on that value and receive just a Godfather offer, basically, and a big time team shakeup offer for what you gave up, I think is a great job. And what he got in return for Dalvin Cook, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Tyler Boyd, as you guys can see on the screen, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Devin Singletary, Baker Mayfield, the 104, the 204, and a 2023 first. I would say that 2023 first wasn't even necessary. I think I would have done that without that in the deal. So the fact that you got that on top of it was great job by you.
Well, like, if we're comparing assets right here, let's just say, for simplicity's sake, AJ Brown is Dalvin Cook, like in most home leagues. Again, we personally would much rather AJ Brown, but for simplicity's sake, Dalvin Cook, AJ Brown. Look at the rest of this deal. Mayfield, also let's Singletary for Boyd. Let's scratch that out. So Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford in exchange for Devontae Smith, Baker Mayfield, a 104, 2023 first, and a 204. Like, I'm taking the package 101 times out of 100.
Yep. Yeah, I broke it down a little differently. I broke it down. AJ Brown versus Cup is pretty even given the age and stuff like that. And then it's just Dalvin Cook, Stafford, and Boyd for the rest of the package, which again, I would very easily take the package over that. So no matter how you slice this, I think you did a great job, Bryan. The rest of your team, I mean, everything seems aligned outside of Aaron Rodgers. That'd be the only guy that stands out as somebody that you probably need to move just because you do have a young team. You have a team set up going forward and into the future that you can build around and try and compete in 2023. So if you can take Aaron Rodgers and maybe you have to add the 104, the 204 or something, go get yourself a stud young quarterback. I think that would probably be a move that I'm trying to make. If you can take Aaron Rodgers and the 104 and go after Lamar Jackson or something like that, that's probably something maybe you can get up to one of the elite quarterbacks, but I'd imagine Lamar or Kyler Murray is probably the guy you can get with that package.
Maybe even like say the person that has Lance or Fields wants to try to get a win now type of asset. And again, maybe you wait until, Aaron Rodgers becomes a Denver Bronco or something like that.
Yeah.
Once that hype is there, you can flip Aaron Rodgers in the 204 for Lance or Fields. That would be another move I would be looking to make.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get into the next team, we got to pay some bills around here, talk about our sponsors over at Manscaped. You guys will be hearing that right now, and then we'll get into JHeebs Team. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions that you can actually keep. How about upgrading your grooming routine for the new year? Our sponsors over at Manscaped, as you guys know, are here to make sure that your ball drops into 2022 in the cleanest possible way ever. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide, including both me and Danny, who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code BUSH for 20% off plus free shipping. And no, that is not how I got the nickname. It's the new year, new me promo going on right now at Manscaped with the global leaders in male grooming. This year, you guys got to take your grooming to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0. Brand new ultra premium body wash as well. It's 2022, fellas. It ain't 2002 no more. We got to keep up with the ladies in the grooming game. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you'll find the Signature Lawnmower 4.0 body groomer. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin. The advanced skin safe technology reduces cuts and nicks all over. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light to the promised land 2022 looks to be. And if your ears and your nose need some trimming up as well, Manscaped's got you covered. They have the Weed Whacker. Their nose and ear hair trimmer uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system, that was a mouthful, to provide proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate ears and nose holes as well. Polish off your stellar new routine with the free gifts from Manscaped with the Performance Package 4.0. You'll also get the travel bag, shed travel bag, and you'll also get the anti-chafing boxer briefs to tie the whole package together. And the new product that needs no introduction, the Ultra Premium Body Wash from Manscaped, ties the whole package together, the perfect addition to your grooming routine, but in the shower, basically. The body wash smells great, too. It's cologne infused with aloe vera and sea salt to keep your skin feeling clean, nice, and moisturized. I use it personally myself, and I've had a very, very good experience with it. Kick discomfort and poor hygiene to the curb this year using the best tools for the job. And you're going to find those all at Manscaped, as mentioned. Whether your resolution is to work out more, travel new places, or whatever, add grooming into your resolution. I promise you will not regret it. In Canada, for example, we are still in kind of lockdown phase, but once we come out of that, you're going to want to make sure that you're groomed to the fullest potential. Be sure to travel to manscaped.com for our exclusive offer for 20% off and free shipping using promo code BUSH on the Performance Package 4.0. Cheers to grooming with the best of the best. It's new year, new me in 2022 with Manscaped. All right, so JHeebs Team, I'll let you take it away with his team and some of the moves and trades that he made.
For sure. So we got a jam-packed list of trades that we got here, but let's look at this right now. Okay, so his quarterbacks, obviously the main ones you want to take into consideration: Mahomes, Rodgers, Mayfield. Running backs: Eckler, Jones, Montgomery, etc. You guys see the receivers: Adams, Evans, Hopkins, and tight end mostly Kelsey. And in terms of picks, he doesn't really have any in these next 2 years. He basically wanted us to look over his trades. He details that he is the 2021 champion, wants to squeeze out one more win now type of year to try to go back to back. So makes perfect sense. The trades he's made so far in 2022, he gave up a 2024 second for Allen Robinson. Again, if you're a contender, this is not a bad move. You're assuming that pick's going to be, mid to late, whatever. I don't mind maybe making that type of move because you're not going to see that receiver running back, whatever, 2024 for a couple years. So although face value, maybe you'd prefer the second in your contextual situation, I will take a Rob.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that I think some people should be doing, if they do have a team set up like this, because I do agree it makes a lot of sense to try and win again,
Yeah.
is collecting 2024 picks, because that's when you're going to be rebuilding, right? So if you can get them now, they're never going to be cheaper to get 2024 draft picks than they are right now. So if you're
That is definitely
intending
true.
on, selling your 2022 and 2023 picks, players and draft classes that we all know about right now, that makes sense because you're not going to be able to use those pieces. But come 2023, let's say mid-season in 2023, you realize Adams and Rodgers, maybe he's retired already. Some of these pieces aren't the same as what they used to be. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins has gone the way of like Des Bryant. He's no longer really that relevant in fantasy. At that point in time, you're going to want to start buying 2024 picks. But if you have 3 firsts already, then that already kind of kickstarts your rebuild at that point in time. So if I were you, I'd be looking to make moves to acquire 2024 picks where you can. Obviously, you don't want to sacrifice your chances of winning a championship, but the Allen Robinson thing, it feels a little unnecessary to me, just given the state of your receiving core. I probably would have been looking to sell younger pieces for 2024 assets, or sell a guy like Julio Jones for a 2024 second or something like that.
Well, and not to mention, I'd rather just give up the 306 if you could have stomached that type of move instead. Again, basically what Corey said, what Corey has echoed, like a lot of these players are going to be out of their prime by 2024. I kind of would have rather taking that pick, but again, I understand contextually why you made the deal, so I'm not going to hate on it too hard, like I mentioned. But either way, we can get on to the next deal, and I'm going to be completely honest. I would rather MT straight up over Hopkins. So the fact that you gave away MT plus for Hopkins, I'm not a big fan.
And we say plus as if there's a lot of good assets in that deal. Like it's Robbie Anderson, the 5'10", and a 2023 fifth. So it's not like you gave. It's pretty much MT for Hopkins straight up, more or less.
I'll take.
But I
MT.
agree. I would prefer Michael Thomas to Hopkins. Again, win now contender. Maybe Michael Thomas is still recovering from an injury, gets off to a slow start next year. Maybe that's the only rationale that puts you in Hopkins' favor. You get an extra 6 to 8 weeks of better production out of Hopkins. But again, I think long-term, short-term, I would still prefer Michael Thomas to DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep, I agree. And the final deal we have here is he received Mike Evans, the 306 and the 409 in exchange for Gabe Davis in 2 seconds. It's just a little too much for me. Like if it was Gabe Davis in a second for Mike Evans, I'd be able to stomach it more. But giving away that extra second for the 306 and the 409 is just not something I would have wanted to do.
Yeah, and again, we say these deals, we're looking at them at face value, but all this being said, if you win again next year, none of it matters, right? Because you're a contender,
100%
to win the championship. So if you win next year, none of these deals matter. And I'm sure if you win next year, Hopkins, Evans, Allen Robinson will contribute to some degree. So all these deals could be nullified by the fact that you win again next year. But my thing is that instead of making that Evans deal, I would have tried to sell Gabe Davis for a 2024 first or something like that, right? Because if you could do that, then that kickstarts your rebuild a couple of years from now. And I don't think Gabe Davis would impact your chances of winning enough next year to the point that you can stomach making that move.
Yep. No, I fully agree with that assessment there. But yeah, overall underlying thoughts looking at this team, not really much else I see here. I'd want to say move off of those aging assets for younger assets. But realistically, in your situation, you're already so committed to the win now that just go win your championship again.
Yep. All right. So we can move off of JHeebs Team. Let's move on to DanielV's team. I'll let you take it away with that.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can see the team on the screen, but main pieces you see here at quarterback, Wilson and Mayfield, running backs, Akers and Dobbins and some fodder, wide receivers, Brown, Higgins, Marquise, etc. And then at tight end and Goddard. In terms of his picks this year, he's got both the 101, the 109, as well as the 204 and the 312. 2023, 2 first-round picks. 2024 does not have his first, but he does have 2 seconds. So let's go over the deals he made. He just kind of wanted to say that he committed to a rebuild and made some moves. So he wanted us to review these moves and maybe see where he can lean this offseason towards, committing to that rebuild. So overall, we see that he sent Derek Carr, Donovan Peoples-Jones, the 2024 first and the 207. Most people that I know would probably say this is a slight overpay, but from our perspective, I'm fine with paying that for Zach Wilson personally. Genuinely speaking, I do think that face value, market value, again, it is probably an overpay, probably a 207 too much, but I believe in Zach Wilson. I think, genuinely speaking, by this time next year, you could be looking at this deal and saying, "Oh my God, I got a top 8, top 10 dynasty quarterback for Carr, a first and a second."
Right. I think if you were able to stomach, or if you were able to not give away the 2024 first, that would have been ideal because you are a rebuilding team.
Yeah,
Maybe, some of your pieces take longer to develop than you think, and you need that 2024 draft capital at some point. So I would have liked to not give away that. If you got Zach Wilson in exchange for Derek Carr, DPJ, and the 207, I think more people would probably take that than they wouldn't, because I think Zach Wilson just has a bad rep around
yeah.
his name right now. So I would have preferred that, but again, I don't like, given my value of Zach Wilson, it's probably fair value. Just the market
That's where I'm
probably
at as well.
would say, like Danny said, that you probably overpaid on that one.
However, though, I mean, the 207 that he acquired was basically in a deal that flipped Mayfield into 207 for Tannehill. In your situation as a rebuilder, you're getting a much younger quarterback, probably at his best upside, ceiling upside, probably has comparable upside to a Tannehill. And the 207, again, moving off an older asset, getting a younger asset in a pick. I don't mind the situation whatsoever for you.
Yeah, this is a tough one because Mayfield, while he's younger, his shelf life could be shorter, right? Because if Mayfield has a bad season next year, then he's going the ways of Mitch Trubisky and Sam Darnold and guys that don't have a lot of value right now. Whereas Tannehill, while he's older, could be a starter for the next 2 to 3 years. And I like, again, maybe that's a hot take coming off of the playoff game that we saw Ryan Tannehill have last week, but I think he has a longer shelf life than Baker Mayfield. So I personally probably wouldn't have made this deal. But I do think there's a world where Baker Mayfield was just injured this year and does have a longer shelf life given the age. So overall, again, this is really a coin flip type of deal for me. So I don't really have preference either way.
When I'm dealing with ambiguity, I'll just take the certain asset out of these bunch, and that's going to be the 207. So again, I'm downgrading a little bit, but I do think that the 207 gives you a little bit more liquid currency, which obviously you ended up giving up in the previous deal. But either way, I would personally rather the package. So, but I understand your perspective there. However, I think we can both agree that he absolutely got a fleece of a deal in this third one. Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara.
I don't even want to analyze that. Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, 101, 2023 first, 209 for Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara in the 2023 second. That's a redraft player deal right there.
Yeah.
Somebody who plays redraft made that deal with you, because that you took him to the woodshed. Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins, I would prefer straight up to both of those running backs. I wouldn't prefer J.K. Dobbins to Alvin Kamara, but the fact that you got the 101, an extra first in 2023, and a semi-valuable pick in the 209. Yeah, you definitely took him for a spin there. The final, I'll let you.
I was just going to say, if this deal was the exact same, except it was Akers Dobbins in a 2023 first for Cook Kamara in a 2023 second, I would probably still rather the Dobbins and Akers side. So the fact that you got the 101 and the 209 out of it, not much more analysis needed there. Let's go on to this final deal. Gave away a dead asset basically at this point with Chris Carson. You ended up getting a first. Like, this is a W.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really want to say that Chris Carson's dead. I don't know exactly what his value is going forward. He's a hard guy to gauge because maybe some people hold on to the fact that he's a big-ish name because he's been fantasy relevant in the past. Or maybe people are thinking like us, like his injuries have caught up with him.
28-year-old running back, ambiguous backfield.
Pardon?
I was just going to say, sorry, I got to cut you off, my bad. I was just going to say, like, he's a 28-year-old running back, and what's kind of proven to be an ambiguous backfield with how Rashad Penny looked this past year.
Right, but Penny's a free agent and Carson's still under contract.
I don't see them not bringing him back
as a win now asset where he's going to be a starter next year. But again, it could be an injury thing. So his market value is hard to gauge. But like Danny said, if you can get a first rounder in exchange for him, like, that's a pretty easy deal to make today.
But good moves there overall. Let's get on to TylerBrownings Team. By the way, sorry for cutting you off. Sometimes I just like spew thoughts, but we're kind of the same way. Either way, you guys see the team right here: Mahomes, Tua, Deshaun, Henry, Barkley, Adams, Marquise Brown, Tyler Higbee, etc. With some ample draft assets as well. I mean, he basically has all his picks, and the pick that he has this year is the 2022 101. So he kind of wanted us to look at the deals he made and kind of see.
I love these trades.
Yeah, kind of see what assets he should look to shop and what he should target with his pick. So you guys can see the trades on the deal. The recent trade he made, he gave up Jerry Jeudy in the 2023 third for Marquise Brown in the 2023 second. This is a beautiful deal. I think at best we can argue, or like if you're a super Jerry Jeudy truther, at worst you can say that Jerry Jeudy and Marquise Brown are in the same tier. And if you're working within the same tier and can upgrade from a 3 to a 2, you do it instantly. I personally would rather have Marquise Brown in Dynasty to Jerry Jeudy.
Right, exactly. We've seen Jerry Jeudy have a career 21% target share or something like that. Like Marquise Brown had like one of the top 10 target shares in the league this year. And I know everybody's like hesitant to buy in because he's a smaller receiver. Rashad Bateman has all this love, but
Lamar Jackson can't throw.
Yeah, you can't deny what Marquise Brown did this year. And like Danny said, I don't want to say we're hoping Jerry Jeudy turns into Marquise Brown, because I do think Jeudy still has a ceiling. And the one thing I will say is that if Aaron Rodgers does sign with the Denver Broncos, whether Judy's production goes up or not, his market value will. So that might sting a little bit if that happens. Maybe you think that you could have gotten more for Jerry Jeudy, but I still like this deal at face value, player versus player. I think Marquise Brown is going to outproduce Jerry Jeudy next year.
Yep. And the second deal we have here, like, I love Michael Gallup. I think he'll be a solid top 25-ish, top 30-ish type of wide receiver in Dynasty. But the fact that you're able to upgrade Gallup to Jacobs, like, I get it. Jacobs gets a bad rap, but he's still going to be a top 15-ish type of running back. And he's still, 23, 24 years old. So
he's literally like a month younger than, or a month older than Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Like he's very young still. A lot of people don't think he's that young, but he is. And he's been productive. He's, gotten 3 down receiving workload for the first time in his career the past, 10 games that we saw him play this year. Maybe that continues. It might have been a John Gruden thing. We actually really don't know. But as soon as John Gruden was gone, we suddenly saw Josh Jacobs in this bigger workload that we never saw. So maybe whatever new coaching staff comes in sees Josh Jacobs the same way, because he was a good receiver in college. He is a good receiver in the NFL, and he's very good in protection too. So I don't understand why he was never used in that type of role. We could be getting like a David Montgomery type of situation next year.
I genuinely think this could be your post-hype Joe Mixon type of player, where again, we were lower on Mixon, he's inefficient, yada yada, but he received a big workload. Are we really counting out the Raiders offense taking a next step next season? Like, again, I don't think they're going to be a top 8 offense like the Bengals were this year, but they're a top 15 offense, and they improve that offensive line and they get Jacobs into scoring opportunities. Like, this is a guy that has shown top 8 to 10 type of upside. So getting that type of deal done, I mean, you're not really giving up much. Worst case scenario, what Gallup throws back in your face and is a top 20 receiver. At that point, I mean, you're still getting a fringe top 10 to 12 running back on a year-to-year basis, and and only really giving the 211 to get it done. I don't mind making that move. In terms of the rest of your roster, this is clearly a win-now team to me. I mean, you have Devontae Adams, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes, etc. Like, I feel like this is the type of team where you push your chips in. You try to win in 2022, especially after getting Josh Jacobs, especially after getting Marquise Brown. That 101, I mean, if nobody's willing to buy high on it, buy high on it, give you an aging asset, take a Treylon Burks, add to this wide receiver core. Or again, if you could flip this 101 and somebody's willing to give you like Tyreek Hill for it, that would be another deal I'd try to move. But overall, I mean, you're in a very good situated team to really make a splash this year.
Yeah, the one thing he does say is that Gallup deal depends on where Gallup ends up. So I don't know if that's like a tentative trade, given that, Gallup hasn't hit free agency yet. But if you can upgrade that 211 to your 209 and get that deal done now, I think I would be willing to do that, just in case Gallup does go to a bad landing spot, or the ACL tear is, has some complications or something like that, and it scares the other manager off. That's probably something I'm willing to do just to get that deal done. Because I think even if that's Gallup in the 209, I would still rather Josh Jacobs pretty easily.
Yep, for sure. So any other underlying thoughts that you have here with this team, or should we move on to the next squad?
No, we're actually done. So we have no more teams.
Oh,
left.
perfect.
So if you guys enjoyed this video, as always, hit the like button, comment any of your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Like I said, we are accepting 10 submissions for Dynasty Decisions on a weekly basis. So we have some people that were supposed to be on this week, but we couldn't fit them in. So we're going to have only a couple more spots for Dynasty Decisions. If you guys want your question, your trade, your team reviewed, the easiest way is to become a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Link is in the description for that. On Monday, we're launching our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto. You'll get access to our top 100 for one quarterback, super flex, Dynasty quarterback rankings, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And we also have our rankings by bucket, by age bucket, foundational rankings, and all that good stuff. And then obviously our player cards and our rookie databases are also coming to Patreon next week as well. So all that benefit, all in one Patreon, $10 basically gets you all that good stuff. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up. Peace out, guys. We'll talk to you soon.